we only go to the county so we can have consistency. I think Kathy stated it, sort of a Reader's Digest. If somebody comes in to do a subdivision, and we have it as the master plan as residential, and the county has it on as commercial, the county won't approve the subdivision, because it's not consistent with their master plan. That's why you try, as a service to your residents, to keep your comprehensive plan consistent with the county plan. That's just as a service. But the county, we could take all of this to the county in January, and they could say, no, we want to leave our map the way it is.
Well, just I did meet with county staff a couple of times on this and kept them abreast of what the map showed and everything else. So they know what's being proposed, and they have been on board with the changes so far.
All right, so then, is there any further discussion here at the public hearing? Any question, any discussion? And if there is not, I'm going to suggest, and if this is inappropriate, say so, but in terms of closing the public hearing, we did it previously. Would it be appropriate to have a motion to close the public hearing and let Plan Commission and Town Board members weigh in on that motion? Is that appropriate, or is that a better way to do it?
Well, you can say, I'm closing the public hearing unless there's an objection. If there's an objection, then we vote on it.
All right, so let's do it that way. I will close the public hearing at this point in time unless there's an objection from any Plan Commission or Town Board member. Okay, last call, any objection? Okay, then the public hearing is closed. And we will go to 18, amendment to the comprehensive land use plan. A is discussion on an amendment to the comprehensive land use plan. And I think the way this is written, that could be discussion by Plan Commission and Town Board members, but the action, if we get to that, possible action would only be taken by the Plan Commission on a resolution to amend the comprehensive land use plan, and if that were to happen, then it would go by way of an ordinance to the Town Board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Sean, you want one more pass at this?
All I would say is that we've been at this for 6 months at least now, and so the document itself has some text markups which I've summarized in the past as we've had. We've looked at the map, we've showed this a number of times at the meetings, and so I appreciate the input and feedback that we got tonight. That's all I was asking in terms of the whole process the whole time. So I do appreciate it.
Okay, we have further discussion then on the amendment of the comprehensive land use plan, and that is the text portion and the map as well as discussed during the public hearing. Is that correct? I mean, it includes the scope of both?
Yes.
Yes. Are you looking for a sample motion?
Well, that'd be good unless there's any further discussion. We can continue
have
that
one,
after.
or should
I don't have a motion.
Okay, the motion, as I want to understand it, is we would be directing the staff to make the changes as agreed by consensus at the public hearing and prepare the final draft of the document and authorize the town chairman as the chairman of the Plan Commission to sign the resolution once he's satisfied that all the appropriate changes have been made per the discussion.
Okay, I heard the motion, but I didn't hear who made it. A Plan Commission member
I'll make it.
made that, all right. Supervisor Stigler, is there a second to the motion?
Second it.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Sisney. All the Plan Commission members understand what the motion is? All right, then we'll proceed to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously 4-0. Thank you very much, everybody, for hanging in there through all of that. Item 19, hearing number 1. Is notice hereby given that a joint public hearing involving the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Town Board will be held on Thursday, December 12, 2019, starting at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Town Hall located at W250 S 3567 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, to hear a proposed conditional use planned unit development PUD for petitioner John Crotty, tax keys WAKT 1404996 and WAKT 1429999 to construct 10 single-family residential homes known as Rolling Meadow Townhomes on 34.29 acres. The description of the property, the legal description is the north 20 acres, the east 1/2 of the northeast 1/4, section 34, town 6, north range 19 east, Number of document, number of references, and it's also part of the southeast one quarter section 27, town 6 north, range 19 east. 3 items on this. First, Planner Malarkey will review the project, the request of petitioner, then we will open public hearing and proceed from there. So go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You may be familiar with the property. It's on the overhead. It's near the southwest corner of Glendale and 164. We just discussed it. So what's being proposed here today, the property is currently zoned A1 agriculture. It's both of these properties. It's this one, and then it's this property as well. The properties have access from Glendale Road. What the petitioner is asking to do is develop the property under the current A1 zoning. They do not need a rezoning for this, with a conditional use for a residential PUD in order to develop 10 single-family condominium units on the parcel. The road that will come in, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the northwest corner of the site. The road that will come in from Glendale Road, Rolling Meadows Drive, will be a private road, and the single-family homes will surround it. The remainder of the property will be maintained as open space. I would allude again to Wisconsin Act 67, that conditional use decisions must be made based on substantial evidence. The applicant must present substantial evidence demonstrating that the application and all requirements and conditions established by the town relating to the conditional use are or shall be satisfied. And then the town's decision to approve or deny the application must be supported by substantial evidence. In terms of the comprehensive plan, it's currently planned as commercial office. We talked about it tonight. It's going to continue to be planned as commercial office for the property. Again, they're not requesting a rezoning, so we don't have to look to the comprehensive plan for a rezoning. They are proposing a condominium plat as part of this, and a condominium plat is not a division of land, although the town's land division ordinances require that condo plats be reviewed according to the same process as a subdivision plat. So when that we don't have that in front of us tonight, but that would be something that the petitioner would bring forward at a later date if this was approved as a condition of approval, to spell out the details of the condo plat. Again, in terms of zoning, it's zoned A1. Normally, in the A1 zoning district, it requires a 50-foot road setback, 20-foot offset, and a maximum building height of 35 feet. In the A1 zoning district, it specifically refers to residential PUDs as being a way to develop those properties. And where the maximum building footprint is 15% of the total land area. Normally, the minimum lot size is 20 acres in the A1 district, but through the PUD conditional use process, that's determined through the process itself. And so what's shown on the property, or on the proposed site plans, all the setbacks from the boundaries of the property are met according to A1. But what the petitioner is proposing is similar to what's previously been approved for single-family condominium developments in the town, and that's a 10-foot setback from the front of the condominium unit, or 25 feet from the private road, 10-foot side offsets from the condominium unit boundaries, and then 20-foot rear offset and 20-foot building separation. There is a existing creek on the property that connects to the Red Wing Creek further southwest. We've discussed this property in the past, and there's been discussion about navigability, whether that creek is navigable. There has not been a determination made to date. However, the site plans do show a 300-foot setback or offset from that existing creek, and what that would mean is that if it was navigable, that's where the county shoreline jurisdiction would apply. And so none of the proposed improvements or grading or stormwater are within that county jurisdiction if it's ultimately determined to be navigable. In our ordinances, we have specific conditional use conditions for residential PUDs, and we have general conditions for any conditional use whatsoever. And so Some of the specific conditional use considerations for PUDs are that there's no specific lot size, offset, setback, minimum open space required. It's determined according to the process, but all sanitary provisions must be approved by the county health department. The development cannot be contrary to the general welfare or economic balance of the community, and the benefits and amenities of the development justify the variation from the normal requirements of the district in which it's located. All other requirements of the PUD are met, set forth herein, and I'll go through some of those right now. And so there's basically a calculation for density for residential PUDs. It takes the existing lot size, and you're allowed to calculate some of the wetlands, 20% of the wetlands in the property, and use those toward the calculation. And then you divide it by a density factor based on the zoning district, in this case A1, and the amount of open space that's required. So if you provide at least 50% open space, you get the biggest sort of density bonus. And when you do the math for this particular property, there's 9.3 acres of wetlands. They're providing 70+% open space. That equals 10.6 units, or rounded down to 10 potential units that could be approved when you provide at least 50% open space. So they do meet that requirement in the calculations. Some of the other requirements are that the open space has to be clearly delineated, that there's got to be adequate guarantee for the permanent retention of open space. There's got to be perpetual care and maintenance set aside, so that would be a land stewardship plan, and that ownership and tax liability needs to be established in a manner acceptable to the town. The condo plat is not established as part of this, but the applicant has told me that as part of the condo plat, they're obviously going to designate the condo units for themselves, and the remainder would be open space managed by the association and would be subject to a land stewardship plan that would be submitted as part of the condominium plat itself. The overall density being proposed is 0.29 dwelling units per acre, or 1 dwelling unit per 3.4 acres. So once we hear from the petitioner, the Plan Commission should determine if by the substantial evidence presented that the proposed density, open space, and configuration are appropriate and the proposed developments not contrary to the general welfare or economic balance of the community, and that benefits and amenities of the resultant development justify the variation from the normal requirements of the A1 district. So those are the specific conditions for a residential PUD. There's also the general conditional use considerations for any conditional use, that it won't violate the spirit or intent of the ordinance, it won't be contrary to the public health, safety, and welfare, won't be hazardous, harmful, noxious, or offensive, and otherwise meet all conditions and requirements of the ordinance. And so the Plan Commission needs to determine if, by substantial evidence presented, that those are met as well. I just want to touch on a couple of other things before I turn it back. In terms of environmental, there are large portions of the property that are wet or have an environmental corridor on them. You can see them on the map overhead. It's this cross-hatched area, and as you can see, all the proposed developments are outside of that area. We require a 75-foot setback from the wetland boundaries. The nearest structure is over 350 feet away from the wetlands. Also, based on county shoreline map or county GIS mapping, it's not on this map, but there is a finger of high groundwater area that extends north and comes close to the existing buildings. There aren't any basements proposed for these units themselves, and they are built up. You can see some of the grading that's surrounding the buildings themselves, so they would be raised up from the groundwater, and there are no basements. In addition, the applicant has provided documentation regarding the groundwater and hydrology of the sites. Stormwater management, there's a facility proposed southwest of the existing units. That would need to be, the plan for that would need to be reviewed by Waukesha County. I know there's been a stormwater management plan submitted, but I have not seen comments yet from the county on that plan itself. The access drive that comes in, Rolling Meadows Drive, is 1,320 feet in length. That is the limit for cul-de-sacs in the town of Waukesha, so it just meets the length requirements. And again, that's a private drive with a rural cross-section. The petitioner has provided architectural drawings of the proposed units for the single-family condos. There's also landscaping proposed as part of this. We don't require any specific landscaping for single-family developments, but they have provided enough landscaping to normally meet the site plan of operation requirements for street frontage. So there is 6 blue spruce, 6 silver maple, and 9 arborvitae that are scattered between the units and along the road itself. There's also a couple of berms that are proposed adjacent to 164, and you can kind of see the topography changes here. There isn't any landscaping proposed at this time for those berms. While I'm here, you can also see in the drawing that the shared septic systems are proposed out in this common open space area that would be shared by the existing, by the 10 units. It shows 10 septic systems out here. There's, 8 septic systems. There's 10 units. It's unclear at this time which would be used by which units and which would be shared. So perhaps they could shed some more light on that. No signage is proposed at this time. In terms of lighting, only wall lighting in the residential units is proposed. There's no freestanding poles. And in your packets, you should have a conditional use worksheet by which to evaluate the evidence presented against the conditions required.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? Want to come forward and introduce yourself, please?
I am John Crotty from Rolling Meadows LLC.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add to the presentation that Planner Malarkey made?
Yeah, I do have a question or point, but my understanding is that under Act 67, conditional uses are need to be granted if you meet all the conditions of the conditional use. And my understanding that tonight the board is just going to be determining, do we indeed meet all the conditions of the conditional use? And is that, could I ask Attorney Macy, is that correct, my understanding of Act 67?
Yes, I mean, what you summarized is correct, but they base it, as the planner has stated on numerous occasions, on the substantial evidence that's presented.
That's presented on whether we've met those conditions. Okay. And also, as we go into discussions, I would suggest that Mr. German, Supervisor German, might recuse himself from these discussions. I understand previous developments requests have been very contentious. And here I've got a petition that he signed on a previous development thing where he stated that he felt the property should not be developed, it should stay agricultural, and I understand he has family land adjoining that, so I don't know that he can be neutral in these deliberations.
Okay, anything else?
Other than that, I am open to questions.
Well, we're going to proceed with the public hearing next.
Okay.
So you can sit down, and then we'll open the public hearing. Anyone who would like to speak to this matter, please come forward.
Would you like me to take the microphone out there, Mr. Chairman, or can I use this one here to speak as a public?
You should go out there. If you're stepping down, if you're speaking as the public, you must be stepping down as a board member.
Sure.
For the moment, yes.
No, you gotta be there, you know, I don't know.
So I have no say as a taxpayer in the town of Waukesha on this.
Well, you say if you're a supervisor, you'll have all kinds of, you know, but you gotta decide which role you play.
Okay, then I'm gonna stay on the board.
Mr. Hom.
Thank you. It's a small meeting tonight.
What kind of a meeting did you call it? Swell or small?
Small, I said. It's a swell meeting too, but
Okay.
not like the 300 we had the couple meetings ago. I understand how difficult it is to come up with substantial evidence. It seems that the city of New Berlin was able to do so, at least for the time being, but then they're being sued. Some of the concerns that were had the last time that this property was up had to do with the wetlands, the water that was there. And, you know, I listened to Sean I tried to write it down accurately, but something about contrary to economic balance was one. Another one was contrary to health, safety, and welfare. And I don't know that I could come up with substantial evidence tonight, so I'm not sure that I wouldn't want this item to be tabled or adjourned to a date certain. But I know most of you, many of you are in favor of planned unit developments, and you know that I'm not. But I think that there is a high risk, and I think that just economically, putting in buildings with no basement, with buildings around it that have basements, it's just not congruent with the way that we develop land in the city. And I don't think that there should be homes being built out there without basements. And I think it is contrary to the economic balance. I also think that there's a risk with the water, and given enough time, I would come back with substantial evidence. And thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Who else would like to speak?
Betty Paget, South 57 West 22641, Woodside Court. How does this development differ from a development last year that was denied on this same property? It seems like the property hasn't really changed. The development doesn't seem that much different, and that one was denied.
Okay, Planner Malarkey or the petitioner, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, the previous development.
Come on up to the microphone, please.
The previous development, to my understanding, was for 40 units on the land instead of 10. So, and the previous request required a zoning change. This request does not require a zoning change.
Okay. Also, the previous request was for town homes, and this is different?
These are single-family condominiums, and the others were, my understanding.
It was 42 attached townhomes, so 21 buildings, 42 units. They were duplexes,
Side by
basically,
side
side
was
by
the-
side.
Okay.
Correct. And a rezone request on top of it.
Okay, thank you. Who else? Members of the Plan Commission or Town Board?
Was somebody gonna address Mr. Ham's questions about the water questions? I mean, there's an extensive.
Yeah, there is an extensive
there's an
stormwater
extensive stormwater
study that was
management plan.
done, and again, the planning for stormwater is all handled by the county. It's not really the town board's decision on whether it's an adequate stormwater plan, that it's a county decision to make.
I think there's also documentation regarding groundwater and hydrology that was submitted as well. And that's beyond my expertise, and I have not reviewed that.
Okay. Anybody else? I've got several questions, but I'll defer to anybody else who wants to go first. And I'm not sure, I'm thinking some of these questions probably can't be answered tonight, but information I'm looking for have really kind of 4 questions that go hand in hand. The first one is, how many acres of land are there in the town of Waukesha in its totality? I don't expect anybody to be able to answer that tonight. Second one is, how many acres of land are there in the town of Waukesha that are designated for commercial use in the town of Waukesha Comprehensive Plan, also known as our Smart Growth Plan? And what percentage of the land in the town of Waukesha does this constitute? I'll just even expand that a bit, either designated for commercial or commercial office use. Question 3 is, how many acres of land are there in the town of Waukesha that are designated for residential use in the town of Waukesha Comprehensive Plan, also known as our Smart Growth Plan? And what percentage of land in the town of Waukesha does this constitute? And the fourth one that's a bit longer, and we talked about this a bit earlier when we were looking at our overall comprehensive plan, but I note that the Town of Waukesha Comprehensive Plan, also known as our Smart Growth Plan, includes a number of land use development objectives. Among them is land use development objective number 4, which reads as follows: the preservation, development, and redevelopment of a variety of suitable industrial and commercial sites, both in terms of physical characteristics and location. So the question that follows on to that, and this might be for you to respond to, Planner Malarkey, in your professional role, and I'm not necessarily expecting an answer to it tonight, but is the request which is before us, which if it were to be approved, would allow residential development on the land which is currently designated for commercial or commercial office use, would that be consistent, that change consistent with land use development objective number 4 in the Town of Waukesha Comprehensive Plan, or our Smart Growth Plan, which calls for, again, the preservation, development, and redevelopment of a variety of suitable industrial and commercial sites, both in terms of physical characteristics and location? And I'm not expecting answers to that tonight.
But that specific land use policy or objective, that doesn't point to this property, does it?
It speaks in general
In
to
general.
the town. It is a land use development objective for the Town of Waukesha, the preservation, development, and redevelopment of a variety of suitable industrial and commercial sites.
Right.
So
And
that's
so
the issue.
So literally, there are other sites planned that are suitable, and this is also a suitable site for commercial use. And so
Right,
this is one that we have planned long-term for commercial use, that's true. And so
Right.
I guess I just want to take a step back and talk about the zoning. And so the zoning is A1, and there are certain rights that come with the zoning of a property outside of the comprehensive plan. And so you have a property zoned, let's say it was zoned for business, commercial use, and the plan called it for residential. If a property owner has a property that's zoned for business use, and they come in to develop a business on that particular property, you can't necessarily point to the comprehensive plan and say, well, we have a plan for residential. We know you bought this property, we know it's zoned for business, but you can't develop a business. We also know that conditional uses do not have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan as part of the legislation. So
I understand and appreciate all of that. My question, I will give you these in writing, is a little bit more narrow in scope, okay? I mean, you may be answering some questions. It's not answering the questions I ask, okay? So,
So you want to know if the specific proposal is consistent with that land use objective?
fundamentally, and I want to know, again, the amount of acreage of land that are in the Town of Waukesha, and I'll give you a written copy of it, the amount of it which is designated on the land use plan for commercial office,
Okay,
and the amount for residential, okay?
sure, and I guess I'll tell you that may take some time to do. I don't have.
I understand.
I don't have the land, this map, our land use map is developed by Waukesha County.
I
So
understand.
I'll have to coordinate with that with them, but I'm sure we can get an answer in terms of the number
No,
of acres.
I appreciate that. Question 5 is a little bit different. I think I know the answer of it, but I guess I'll pose it to you. Is it true that there is language pertaining to planned unit developments in the conditional use section of the Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances? I think that's true, right?
Correct.
My question is, if that is in fact the case, on what date was that language incorporated into the Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances? Again, I don't expect you to have the answer to that tonight. You might, but that's a question I'd like to have answered. And a similar question to it, it's a little bit different, but is it true that there is language pertaining to planned unit developments in the agricultural A1 zoning district section of the Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances? And I think the answer to that is true, otherwise we wouldn't be here tonight.
Right.
And my question to you is, if indeed that's so, which it is, on what date was that language incorporated into the Town of Waukesha Code of Ordinances?
And so, just to quickly answer, or ask you additional questions on those, I don't have any knowledge of when those were added. We can look to see when they're added, but that's going to be largely outside of my hands. I don't have any
Well, I understand
access
that,
to
and
any of it.
maybe Administrator Nicholas or somebody, there's an answer to that question out there, true?
Hopefully, yes.
Well, yeah, there should be.
Can I ask how it pertains?
I'm not sure if it does, but I'd like to have the answer to that question, okay? Or those questions. Anybody else have any more questions or comments?
I do have an additional comment. I mean, I understand the desire for commercial or office, but unfortunately, that location just does not, the marketplace doesn't have a use for commercial office space down there. If it did, developers would be coming to you trying to build those things. And you can keep waiting, and you can wait another 20, 50 years, maybe it'll happen. But in the meantime, it's land that's just sitting fallow. I mean, I didn't know this, but apparently 20 years ago, there was a residential proposal on the property, perhaps, or,
It was,
but,
excuse me, it was a long time ago.
but that is what the demand is for. There's a demand for additional residential units in that part of the town of Waukesha. There is no demand for commercial space. So even though you zone it commercial or business, that doesn't mean anybody's gonna come and risk millions of dollars to build something that there's no need for. So that land would go unused.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir.
I don't think there's any land that goes unused. It's all being used for something. And there may be a demand for residential housing. I'm not in that business, so I don't know. But there's also a demand to keep a rural nature to the town, which is why a lot of people have moved here. There's also demand by the city to be able to annex land. So everybody has their demands. I understand this demand. I understand why this land maybe should have been, changed in the plan to be residential, but that's not what happened a couple agenda items ago. So I think that there are competing demands, and, I'm not interested in having more and more land of the town eaten up by residential. And like Supervisor Dorr says, he's glad that a farmer decided to subdivide his land and sell it off. And I've said it before, we all think there's room for us, and as soon as we get there, it's full, and there's no more room. So I understand that perspective, but that's where we're at. We're different people, have the different perspective, and that's what mine is. Thank you.
I'd like to make one final statement. And yes, we all have our thoughts and ideas on how things should be, but that's why we create laws, because it's too hard to exist with just all our thoughts and ideas. And that gets back to what this is basically ruling on whether this plan meets all the conditions put forth in the conditional use rules of agricultural zoning. That's what the decision is there. Do we meet those conditions? Because if we do meet the conditions, then the conditional use needs to be approved. It's not a question of do we want it, do we like it? You guys are a quasi-judicial body, and you are ruling based on this point of law. So, all right.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, I'm going, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No,
It's just
that's
if you
fine.
want that information to be in the record, we have to adjourn the public hearing.
Yeah,
You know
I
that.
think we do need to adjourn the public hearing so we have an opportunity to get the information that's been requested. So unless there's any objection to that,
Take a motion.
yeah, the motion would be to adjourn the public hearing to the 9th of January. Would that be the logical motion?
At a specific time.
Yeah, at 6:30, or at least at the start of our meeting at 6:30 PM on January 9th, 2020. Is there such a motion? Okay, is there a second to the motion to adjourn the public hearing to January 9th, 2020 at 6:30 PM? Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Yep, let's take a 5-minute comfort break at 9:37.
No? Is that the only reason you came today? Oh, that's, I forgot about Pebble. Yeah, I completely glazed over that. You're right, yeah.
Oh, you're done with that, yeah.
But you're probably done.
Yeah, I think
I bet if you ask Kathy, you could cut.
because I don't think I need to be here for this whole.
No, this is just zoning stuff, zoning text changes.
You gotta be here, man. 9:38.
You think you're done?
I think he's done.
I'm gonna take my banana and go. Well, my day will come. I have no illusions.
Well,
Time to go.
No, if you're at this meeting, they'll know what happened. Yeah. They'll know you're still here.
All right, let's go back into session here at 9:50. And we are we're passing over item 20 because the public hearing was not closed on the request for planned unit development for Rolling Meadows. So we're on to 21 and 22. I can read that I think we're going to move on. But 21 is hearing number 2. Notice is hereby given that a joint public hearing involving the Town of Waukesha Plan Commission and the Waukesha Town Board will be held on Thursday, December 12, 2019, following hearing number 1, starting at 6:30 p.m. at the Waukesha Town Hall located at W250 S3567 Center Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin, to hear a town board's proposed Waukesha Town Code text amendment to repeal and recreate sections 42-35, 42-44, 42-83, 42-84, 42-85, 42- I think that should be 86 probably, 42-87, 42-88, 42-99, 42-90, 42-91, 42-92, 42-94, and 42-95 related to conditional uses in the Town of Waukesha zoning code, and 42-91, 42-92, and 42-93 related to permitted uses. I'm going to just take a pause here for a minute, but this is agendized to be a review of project by Planner Malarkey and Attorney Macy, then opening up a public hearing, either closing or adjourning the public hearing. If we did, we could take action on it. Come to our recognition here that the paper part of that is not in people's packets tonight. We can kind of go around a bit, but I'm not there seems to be some indication that everybody had a complete opportunity to fully review that. So the question is whether you want to proceed to simply have the project review outlined. We could open the public hearing. We could take public comments on that. We could adjourn the public hearing conceivably. Conceivably, we could close the public hearing and act on this if people were comfortable. I think there's a variety of options in front of us. Does anybody have a pleasure or recommendation about that? Do you want to speak to it?
I have a recommendation that we at least start the public hearing, or else you have to republish it.
Sure.
So I don't want to waste taxpayer money. So at the very least, you've got to start the public hearing. I would recommend that we have Mr. Malarkey tell us the changes, the history and the changes based on the direction that your staff was given. Because if you're going to study it more, it would be helpful for you to at least know what he did at your direction. And then once you hear what he did, you can decide whether or not to close the public hearing or to act on it.
I think that's an excellent suggestion. If everybody's on board, let's proceed that way, Sean.
Sure, thank you.
Let's start the public hearing and put this
All right, yep, okay, then the public hearing is now open, and we will begin the public hearing with a review of the project by Planner Malarkey and Attorney Macy. Okay?
So I did make some changes to the zoning ordinance as directed. Attorney Macy also assisted in the process. And so the gist of this is that we
have a couple of new commissioners. First, we have to tell them what happened for the last 6 months or a year on this project.
I was about to, but
Okay.
you go, actually.
So you were going to jump right into
No, you do
changes.
you do a great job, so why don't you
No,
give some background?
That's just that we had worked on this based on the new law that's already been referenced. We got direction from the town board and the plan commission as to what to do. We were all the way up to having the public hearing and reviewing it and completed. We were going to do it in bite-sized pieces. The first piece was nearly done. We were told, we were told that we might want to think about that a little bit more, and I did, and we did not finalize the first phase. We pulled it back from the county, even though we'd sent it to the county, and that's when we came to you and asked for direction. And so we ended up doing what would have been at least a part of phase 2 to complete phase 1. That's the way I analyze it. because we were gonna repeal the conditional uses and then bring back them piecemeal after we'd done the study. But you told us that even though, since we were going to be, we stopped the process, go and do, as I think the word was, the no-brainers. The ones that obviously were not controversial and that he could put back in quickly and efficiently to help our residents, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight, whether we accomplish that task. So the base ordinance was done months, years, a long time ago. And now we're here tonight to talk to the changes that we made to the base ordinance. The base ordinance was already subject to a public hearing and approved by the plan. That's not to say you can't change the base ordinance. I'm just telling you, there's a lot of work that went into the base ordinance, and now we're here to talk about the changes to the base, which was really putting things back in. Okay, does everybody understand that? Yep. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of conditional uses, we took all of the conditional uses out, except we kept maybe 8 or 9 of them in. And the ones we kept in, because there was enough conditions there, we slightly modified the conditions to be appropriate to meet the substantial evidence requirements of the law. So there's enough protection there in terms of the conditions that are required for commercial residential ponds, commercial kennels, commercial vehicle operation and parking, in-law units, multifamily units, residential PUDs, senior housing, event venues. We took out communication structures and we replaced it with wireless telecommunication mobile service facilities. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 conditional uses basically that we left in. Some of them got tweaked. And so those we feel have substantial enough conditions to protect you through the conditional use process. In terms of senior housing, that specific one, it's conditional in the R3 zoning district. It used to be conditional in the R3, B1, and B3. We left it conditional in R3, but we moved it and made it permitted use in B1, B2, and B3. So in the R3, it's conditional. It's maybe near single family, but in the business districts, we made it permitted. But we kept the same conditions. So even though it's permitted in the business districts, it's an easier process. They still have to meet all the same conditions as you would have to do in R3. Just doesn't require a public hearing in that regard. And that's helpful in some of the instances where we're talking about some of the boundary agreement TID issues and so on and so forth. To allow senior housing to be permitted in those districts helps us in that regard. Event venues, that is now limited to just the business districts, so it's not allowable in every zoning district. It's just the business districts where that's a conditional use. The wireless telecommunications section that got added includes the full regulations that are allowed by law. So the state statutes basically say you can regulate this, you can't regulate that. It's got to be allowable in every zoning district, and so that's based on a sample from Attorney Macy from another community that we tailored to your needs, and it includes everything you can possibly regulate that the law allows. We also added something for continuation of existing conditional use permits. So for those uses that are repealed from the conditional use section, if it doesn't exist anymore and we happen to have a conditional use out there that was originally approved under that, let's say, we removed automobile sales or automobile service or something like that. If one exists and they have a conditional use, we added language that basically says they can continue the use and it could be amended. That use can be amended. If a public hearing is required, they can have a public hearing according to the provisions of the permit that was originally issued. So if that says they can do non-substantial modifications to the plans or plan of operation without a public hearing, they can do that. If it requires a public hearing, they can come in for a public hearing and amend it that way, so that all those existing grandfathered uses out there aren't hung out to dry and they can continue to amend and operate. In terms of permitted uses, we've also added, we talked about this a little in the past, daycare facilities. Originally there was a question on daycare facilities. We've sort of agreed that they were permitted in the P1 district as a subset of public uses. We've also added them as a permitted use in the B1, B2, and B3 code because the code was basically silent on daycare uses, so we wanted to clarify that. And I think That's all I have. Did I cover it?
Yes. Okay. Public hearing is open. Who would like to speak? Anybody from the audience?
Sandy Hom, West 230 South 3827 Milky Way Road. The one thing I had written down was daycare. And I did try and go through the 45 pages of redlined stuff. It was, and I searched, I don't know if the search engine I had worked or not, but I searched for daycare and, stuff. I didn't find anything in it. Maybe the search engine was bad or I used the wrong term. In any case, I'm happy with the way you've defined it and where you would allow it, but I don't know what the definition is of daycare. And so I'm wondering, and I know that came up earlier, where we had somebody in the church, and was it daycare or childcare or what was it? So I'm wondering if there is a definition for daycare so that it fits into those 3 zoning districts. We know what that is.
Our ordinance, didn't mention daycare facilities prior, and there is no definition of it in the ordinance. Many of the uses don't have a definition associated with them. It's whatever the common accepted practice is for the definition, but that is something we could consider adding if the Plan Commission.
It was vague before, because there was, some people were calling it a preschool, but it was really a daycare.
Right.
I mean, when is a daycare turn into a preschool? I mean, hopefully the kids are at the daycare, they're being instructed in something most of the day when they're not napping or eating or at recess, I don't know. So I think it really would be helpful. I mean, I know that there are situations where there are non-commercial daycares, which when is it babysitting, when is it daycare kind of thing. And I think it'd be good to add that somewhere so we know what that means.
We do have a definition section in the ordinance, so that could be added.
Thank you.
Okay, who's next? Sean, maybe just even in the document here, can you just direct us to the permitted use with regard to the daycare? Where is that, or that's under sections 42, 91, 92, and 93, is that in there somewhere?
It would be in the last pages,
Right.
under permitted uses under B1, B2, and B3.
Do you have a paragraph number on that under 4291?
4291 is going to be, so it's on the top of page 43, it's redlined, the first paragraph, daycare facilities.
I don't have page numbers on this document. Is that
Oh, you
under a
don't.
particular
So-
section
so-
number?
So 4291,
4291, yeah.
it's under B1A.
I see it. Okay, I see it.
And so it's
Yep.
it's only listed there, and and the rest, B2 and B3 refer to the permitted uses in B1.
They point back to
Yes.
B1.
Correct.
I get it, okay. All right, other questions? I have, I guess, one that I would go with just for discussion purposes, but in-law suites had been a conditional use, and we're talking about putting that back in as a conditional use, right? And I guess the question that I would have is practical matter, and if you look at some of the verbiage for that isn't being changed, I mean, maximum living area per unit shall not exceed 800 square feet. I mean, in all the years that I've been on the Plan Commission, I'm not saying it never happened, but I don't recall even people coming in and asking for a conditional use for an in-law suite. I mean, as a practical matter, I suspect there's quite a few of those throughout the town of Waukesha. What would be the rationale that we just wouldn't make that a permitted use in residential occupancies? Is there some thought to that?
The only concept for that is that if they move out and you furnish a place, it's above the garage, whatever it is, it's attached or detached, and your in-law passes away or moves on or whatever else, and there's a space, and eventually gets rented out to someone else, and then all of a sudden, there's two people living on this, there's two different families living on the site, and it's essentially a duplex in a single-family district, and so the conditional use allows you to keep track of that and ensure that you don't get that situation happening.
So we couldn't write language, even if it's a permitted use, to
Prohibit that?
prohibit somebody from using it as a rental unit?
You certainly could, but you'd never ever see it. It would never get, there's no trigger to ever review it, and so we wouldn't know if people are following it or not. And so at least we'd know, hey, there's 5 in-law units out there, and
I guess I'm not sure that we know now. I mean, how many in-law units are there in the town of Waukesha?
Let me interject here. We had one, I think, on the Board of Appeals one time came in.
Oh, did you?
and-
Okay.
And we restricted it. We put a restriction on
It's
their.
required to have a deed restriction.
Deed restrictions, is the word I'm
Right.
thinking. Sorry, thanks,
Right.
John.
yeah,
Okay.
that does say deed
That's what we
restriction.
put into that one at that time, that they could never, ever rent it out or do anything else with it. I mean, I don't know how you
Okay.
enforce it, but I mean, it was something different, yeah, I know, it was, but that's why it came to the Board of Appeals, but.
I guess I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm just looking at it from a practical matter. It's probably beyond us at this point in time to identify how many such things might be out there, how they're being used. So, but I mean, if the thought is to keep it in there, if we need to take some kind of enforcement action, if that's a cleaner way to do it, that works for me.
No, we definitely, from a legal standpoint, recommend the deed restriction, whether it's a permitted accessory use or it's a conditional use. The problem is the realtors go in and they don't check the zoning.
Yeah.
They see it's being used as a two-family, and they sell it as a two-family, and then the mortgage lender loans money on it being a two-family and the potential rent. And when I go to shut them down, the lenders are screaming at me, well, nobody told us it wasn't a legal duplex and they couldn't rent it out. And so it's as the history goes on, and that's why, as to whether it's a permitted use or accessory use is a policy decision, but you gotta have the deed restriction in there so at least the realtors find out about it.
Okay, so I'll leave that as a conditional use. Is that the pleasure of the group? Okay, then I've got one other one that I have a concern about, and that would be the conditional use for event venues, and particularly considering the history we've had with that. Can you walk through, there's a small change to that or not, or what?
The only change in that is that it's struck that it's allowed in every zoning district, and so that language is now gone, and then in the individual B1, B2, and B3 zoning districts, it's added as a conditional use only there.
So, all right, so I see the language here that says an event venue is allowed in any zoning district, and you're simply telling me we gotta go back and look at B1, B2, or B3, and that's the only places in which that event venue conditional use would be allowed?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I think that's a significant improvement. And still, the B1, B2, or B3 zoning, it would still have all the other conditions such as not less than 20 acres in area, 100 feet structure offset, all that kind of stuff would still be in play.
Correct. So-
Even on the B1, the
So
B2,
it's,
and the
there's
B3.
potential, like on near Lonsdale and
I understand.
164, those large properties there
Okay.
potentially could be used for an event venue.
Okay, I'm good with that. What has anybody else got? We're still into the public hearing here. Anybody in the audience want to speak or speak again? Are there open questions on that? Is there reason not to proceed to close the public hearing?
I
Mike?
would ask that it be adjourned.
Okay. He's asking that
that
the
it be-
public hearing be adjourned.
Rather than closed.
Okay. I can get behind that. Does anybody have a problem with continuing the public hearing? If you want that adjourned, do you want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure, I'll make a motion to adjourn it to January 9.
Again, at 6:30 PM or however the
Right.
sequencing works. Okay, is there a second to the motion to adjourn this public hearing to January 9th at 6:30 PM?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so the motion's by Supervisor Durr, seconded by Commissioner Sisney. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So that passes unanimously with 7 in favor. Then we will not deal with item 22 because the public hearing is still open. Item 23, it's probably going to be difficult, but we need a motion to adjourn the Plan Commission meeting at 10:10 PM.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Okay, motion has been made by Commissioner Fuller, seconded by Commissioner Sisney to adjourn the Plan Commission meeting. All Plan Commissioners in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll keep going then, right on into the Town Board meeting. Item 24 of business, appointment of Kathy Piala to the Plan Commission to complete Brian Webb's 3-year term ending 4/30/21. That's the appointment that I would like to make. Kathy was not able to be here tonight. I mentioned earlier she is out of state. I believe she's a well-known entity in the town here. I did not require her to submit a resume or that type of thing, so I would go to item 24B and ask the town board to confirm her appointment to complete Brian Webb's 3-year term ending 4/30/21. Is there a motion to that effect?
Also move.
All right, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Stigler, second by Supervisor German. Discussion. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously with 5 in favor. Item 24C is appointment by the town board of 3 members for 3-year terms to the Joint Extraterritorial Committee. Town board members are eligible for appointment. The reference to statute is 6223, 7AC. I would like to move the appointment of Supervisors Durr, Stigler, and myself to be the 3 members to serve for the 3-year terms on the Joint Extraterritorial Committee, and I will so move. Is there a second to those recommended and moved appointments?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, discussion. I should probably even ask of the 2 of you of your willingness to serve. That was maybe a bit presumptuous. Are we okay? Huh? Somebody already asked. All right.
What does it pay?
About as much as your town board meeting tonight, which isn't a whole lot,
Why do you think I seconded?
basically.
Dave wanted us to get it before he ended.
Okay, good to have a little bit of levity at this late hour. All right, is there any further discussion on that? Those will be effective immediately. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 24D, discussion and possible action on Wisconsin building inspections 2020 to 2022 contract. You should have a copy of that in your packet of paperwork. I would just make one observational comment, and that would be, if you look at the top of page 2 of 3, under paragraph H there, it says this agreement shall be in effect from the first day of January 2020 through the 31st day of December 2023. That would actually be 4 years if you do the fingers and toes part of it. I know Attorney Macy has some thoughts on that about the wisdom of binding the town board to long contracts, given that there might even, I mean, you can reasonably expect turnover on the board and people to have different
Chairman,
pleasures.
I'm sure that was a typo on the inspectors. He was very clear, he was looking for a 3-year term.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it might be. I mean, I'll just toss something in and we can discuss it. I frankly, and I'd like to hear from all the rest of you, I frankly would prefer either a 1 or a 2-year contract to the 3-year contract, but I'm open to comment or suggestion from all of you. Thoughts, and certainly talk about so we could motion in place, you can talk about the particulars of the agreement, but that would be my personal pleasure, but I'm willing to listen to anything anybody have to say.
I don't really have an issue with a 3-year term. I mean, if there's just cause, we can always get out of it if need be.
Okay.
I would lean towards a 3-year term.
Okay. Anybody else? Everybody comfortable with that?
He wanted a 3-year term? Okay. I'm fine also then.
How
Okay.
does this, somebody else say something? How does that play in with if we end up being a village? I mean, is there ramifications for, pardon me?
our services would just transfer over. So we still have them.
We still, I mean, we're still gonna need one, I guess, at this point, we're gonna keep, under those circumstances, okay. As long as I'm fine with it.
I guess I would just ask a question of Attorney Macy, just in terms of what Kathy said there. If we've got existing agreements and everything, do those just go forward, or do they have to be modified, or what? They go forward. Okay. Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve a 3-year contract for the building inspections.
And it would be per the document presented?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor German to approve the contract for inspection services between the town of Waukesha and Wisconsin Building Inspections LLP for a 3-year term beginning on January 1st, 2020 and running through December 31st of 2022. Everybody understand the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Item next, discussion and possible action on an amendment to the 2024 capital projects plan. Mike, you had something, is this your agenda item?
It's not my agenda item. I saw it on the agenda and just put something together for consideration. If I handed it out 10 minutes ago, if people want to chew on it for a couple of weeks and we can come back to it, but it's kind of the same vision or thoughts that I had when we addressed it a month ago, and we didn't have it on paper, and I can certainly understand and appreciate that. So really what this does is in 2020, it introduces $40,000 back into the capital plan for a firehouse, and then $80,000 in 2021, and $1.5 million in 2022. That would take the fire department capital plan for 2020 to $190,000 total. And then in the DPW in 2020, it takes the road program from 250,000 to 300. It leaves in the backhoe for 70, and leaves in the 1 ton for 70. So then the DPW total is 440. You add that to the firehouse, and you get to 630. So we would have a capital plan of 2020 for a total of $630,000. So it's pretty self-explanatory. As you move to 2021, 2, 3, and 4, I've added some things along the way, none of which should be foreign to anybody. The salt shed is there. I scaled it back. I have some thoughts on that we can either address tonight or at a future time, given that it's not projected until 2022. And then I just crossed out the totals in the fire department line and the DPW line, and then also down at the bottom for a total capital spend in every year. So that gets us to 2021 of 610,000, and then 2022 of 2,260,000, and 2023 of 1,388,000, and finally 2024 of 1,500,000.
Can I just back up for a minute? I'm not sure what we're looking at. This was in our
Yes.
packet?
No, I handed it out to you a short time ago.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. I've got this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, you just held the one up. Oh, that's not the one that I made adjustments to.
He was looking at the packet.
Yep, got
This
it.
is the one he was talking.
Okay.
I took what we had in the packet and just made some additions to it.
Okay.
And that's what I just went through.
Well, I guess I just have one comment. I might well be on board with much or maybe even all of what you're proposing here. Me personally, a little bit the concern I got about it is the timing of it and digesting it. And the other thing, we've invited town residents to speak to us on the 23rd of January. Would we maybe be well not to get ahead of ourselves with this until we have that discussion? Or I guess I'll ask it another way. Is there an urgency to do this before we hear from town residents on the 23rd of January?
There is not. My goal this evening was to put numbers on paper
Okay.
to enact a discussion so that we didn't start from scratch at 20 after 10 at night.
Okay.
And then the other piece of paper that you have is simply taking our current capital plan balance, which is approximately $2,600,000. And then it takes the funding for each of the years. So we know for certain that the funding for the capital plan out of the tax levy next year is $370,866. And then that $630,000 is directly correlated to the other sheet of paper, the bottom line. So all this is a cash flow analysis of the next 5 years.
Quick question, I appreciate that, and we've looked at this kind of thing before. I'm running on memory, which might be not good, but I thought we were anticipating an end-of-year balance in the capital fund more around $2 million. Am I wrong on that?
I pulled it today for Supervisor Durr. I pulled the cash.
And it's 2.6, that's what we had?
With the 45,000.
So that's what we presented in our budget documents is an estimated end of the year capital fund balance of $2.6 million, give or take.
I don't know what we present, I didn't, he asked me what the balance was right now, and that's what I gave him.
Okay, well, all right, well, what's the pleasure of the board? I don't, and again, I appreciate where you're at, but I don't really think we should be acting on this tonight when, the public hasn't even seen it, we haven't digested it.
I have
Oh.
no problem with that
Okay.
at all.
All right,
It was simply to
good.
initiate discussion, and I don't want to get to January 24th and have a pile of people show up and say, well, what would you like to do with the $2.5 million next year? I think we owe it to the people to have a concept and a plan in place when they show up. And then if they feel differently, they're certainly entitled to,
I don't disagree
to give
with
us
that.
that opinion.
And that's part what precipitated a month ago. Remember, I handed out the thing trying to get the temperature of the board as to what they might support. So I think we can come at that from a couple of different angles. Asking, and I think we ought to put this on the agenda for further discussion on January 9th, but you might remember on that, I asked 5 questions of whether you would support construction of addition to the existing fire station, support installation of emergency generator, support construction new public works building, support the construction of new salt shed, then a variant on a new fire station, let public works move into the building and everything. So I think we're doing somewhat the same thing, coming at it from different angles, but I think we should let this lay over and pick it up on the 12th of January, and we can certainly get the temperature of the board, or the 9th of January rather, and then really invite the public to participate in the discussion on the 23rd of January. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, then we'll move on. Discussion possible action on 2020 to 2021 poll workers. Is that you, Kathy?
Yep, so you have in your packet the list of poll workers. We do this every 2 years. The parties give us a list, and then we add our current poll workers to that list. I'm asking for approval.
Okay, have you got sufficient staffing or what or not at this point in time?
Yes.
Okay, any questions or action on that?
I'll make a motion then that we approve the poll workers.
Just a second.
Second.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Radke, second by Supervisor Durr to approve the list of poll workers that were in your packet. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. Review of written and oral comments on the cooperative plan with the town of Brookfield.
You all have those in your packet, right? You don't have it in your packet.
Does everybody have this? The big clip? Okay. Is that what she went to get rather than the plan was the public comments? Not sure. Why don't we, in an effort to move along here, unless there's any objection to it, we could begin the discussion on the, well, let's see how long she's gonna be. I was gonna say we could begin the discussion on the resolution, not act on it, or you think we're better off just to wait till she brings the copies of the comments? Let's just wait. Did you ever see this or not? Is in the text. Bills is an insert.
Oh, no, I heard about it.
Some of that thing.
I sent you the city of Waukesha's.
Yeah, the Brookfield one looks weird to me.
I've got Brookfield printing, but this is Waukesha's, if you wanna start with that one. You all were sent this electronically, this one you received, this is the first one you saw. So,
All right, so, you all, I believe, attended the, public hearings at, which time you were, present when oral comments were made. The sole, is it correct, the sole written comments are the only written comments that we have on the cooperative plan between the town of Waukesha, town of Brookfield, is the letter of October 8th from Mayor Riley. Is that a correct statement?
no, that is not. That's
Okay,
what we're
correct
gonna
me.
review right now. We had two letters, if you remember, I sent you the city of Brookfield and the city of Waukesha's. I brought you a hard copy of the city of Waukesha's, just in case you didn't bring yours with, for review tonight, so we are clear that you all reviewed and each one of the sections that they spoke about.
Correct, I guess, correct me, again, the comments, there are comments from the town of Brookfield?
City of Brookfield.
City of Brookfield, okay. And we have a copy of that here?
Well, it's still printed,
Oh, okay,
if you didn't bring it with you.
all right.
I'm printing it. It was also in the electronic packet. Everybody got a ordinance, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just wanna make sure.
So the purpose of this agenda item is to review this, if we have questions, or?
You're
Yes,
required
sir.
under the state law to review the comments. It's a specific state correction.
Okay,
And so the minutes have to reflect that you went through all of the comments, you talked about the comments. Your staff has already reviewed the comments in length and made, changes to the comprehensive plan, to address many of the comments. Kathy was gonna walk you through some of that.
okay.
Okay, we'll let her do that when she comes back. Okay, Attorney Macy said you were maybe gonna walk us through a couple of these things a little bit, or what's your pleasure?
So, let's go through, the city of Brookfield. Section 4A.
Use the mic.
I'm sorry. We're gonna take a look at the City of Brookfield's comments. And, section 4 is what, A, they started with, to increase government efficiency through the sharing of services that have been provided separately by Brookfield and Waukesha to eliminate duplicative or unnecessary expenditures. They have a paragraph of what the response was. We want to make sure that we all review that response, and then I'll need an affirmative that you have reviewed that response. I'll make note of that for our,
I have.
I have.
Or down the line, I have also.
Yes.
B, to assure orderly development by establishing a joint planning area as set forth in section 7.
I reviewed this.
Yes.
Bob? Okay. Section 5, consistency and comprehensive. I'm not gonna read all that. Go ahead and review.
I've reviewed it.
Yes.
Okay. Town of Brookfield, consistent land use, they were questioning. It's 1, 2, 3 paragraphs, 4, 5 paragraphs until efficient services. And then we'll start with the town of Waukesha next.
Yep, I reviewed it.
Me also.
Yes.
The town of Waukesha, consistent land use. Looking through all the way to section 6.
It doesn't have to be that we sit here and review this tonight. We just have to have reviewed it, right?
You have had to review it.
Okay, very good. I just want to make sure my earlier work was good enough. Okay,
We just-
I reviewed that.
Yeah, the idea is we want to make
Yes.
sure that everyone reviewed each
Yes.
comment from everyone, so it can't be said that you didn't review them. Okay, section 6, content of plan.
Yes.
Section 6?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Section 7,
Yes.
I reviewed the joint planning area.
Me also.
Yes.
all right. We'll go to 8.
It would be the municipal services, right?
That's correct.
And I reviewed that.
Me too.
Yes.
All right, next page is public utilities. Talking about sewage disposal, water supply, sanitary sewage facilities, existing and planned sanitary sewer service in Waukesha County.
Yes, reviewed.
Yep.
All right, the next page is the.
What were the tax listings for?
The tax listings
The what?
in here. What they were showing us. I wasn't there yet, I was at the electric
Oh, I'm
company,
sorry.
Webco.
I jumped ahead.
So they were showing us the properties that exist in our areas, in that area that is the northeast corner, that we're looking to have sewer and water. And then the next one is the White House subdivision. The next page is the map. It starts with map 1, goes down to sewer pack analysis, Town of Brookfield Comprehensive Plan, Waukesha County Comprehensive Plan. Have you reviewed that page?
Yes.
Page 20.
I have.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, next page is the comprehensive development plan for Waukesha County, and they are, there's two pages of that. Works on municipal sharing, revenue sharing, park and open space plan implementation, transfer of development rights, municipal boundary and utility extension agreements. Page 22.
Yep, I reviewed it.
Yep.
Brian, you okay?
Yep.
Reviewed it, okay. We have a picture of Waukesha County Land Use Plan from the town of Brookfield. Two sides, recommended land use for Waukesha County, 2035. Did you take a look at those two maps?
I
Yep.
did.
We have a land use and goals and objectives. Land use development objective number 2.
We got enough objections.
Object-
We don't need more.
Reviewed.
Reviewed.
Yes.
All right. The next page is principal standards, land use development, principal standards for objective number 3.
Reviewed.
Yep.
Reviewed.
And then the map, Les Paul Parkway on it. Shows the boundaries of the northeast corner.
Reviewed it.
Reviewed.
Yes.
Got 2 more maps, the land use map for the town of Waukesha and the Waukesha zoning map.
Familiar with the land use plan for the town of Waukesha. Didn't need to review that one.
All good.
Reviewed.
All right, so we've got the zoning map and then shared dispatch. Implementation recommendations.
Familiar with the zoning map when I looked at the shared dispatch and implementation recommendations.
Reviewed. Yes.
Reviewed.
All right, the next page is Yagi Colby. And this had to do with when the town of Brookfield was looking to incorporate part of the town of Waukesha's land. So
Yep,
that's
I've
for
reviewed it.
example.
Reviewed.
Reviewed.
All right, next page is the summary of that page from July 6, 2012.
Reviewed it.
All good.
Yes.
Table 8, municipal water service comparisons.
Reviewed.
Reviewed.
Stormwater management 2010 annual report.
Reviewed.
Reviewed.
Okay, we're gonna move on to Waukesha County shoreline floodland zoning map.
Yes.
Reviewed.
Yes.
And then she's got some, talking about unplotted lands.
Reviewed.
The next
Yes.
one is the Waukesha GIS map. It showing Springdale Road, Pioneer Trail, Ridge Road, and ordinance ID 2850.
Yes.
Reviewed.
This is about Overlook townhomes. It's the Foth report that was given during that, the review, showing that Overlook was created with sewer and water, with well and septic.
Reviewed.
Familiar with that?
Then the last page is an example of our tax keys in the area, on Lincoln Avenue and Highway 164.
Okay, so that's that document in its entirety?
Yes.
So I want to make a statement
ahead.
for the record. That's
Yep.
the City of Brookfield comment?
Yes.
Correct.
All right, so each of you have represented that you have reviewed it. I can indicate to you that Attorney Hammes, town attorney for the town of Brookfield, took the laboring or for the town of Brookfield, City of Brookfield comments and reviews and made the changes to the agreement based on the same. So the record will reflect that you've reviewed it, but I want the record also to reflect that Attorney Hammes took it into consideration when making all of the revisions. And I believe there will be a original agreement in the
That's correct.
packet, and from the one that you went to public hearing on, and then there'll be a red line showing all of the changes that he made based in large part on the comments made by the City of Brookfield and the town of Waukesha, as well as any residents that made. So that's what we're doing tonight, is making sure that the record clearly shows that we took those into consideration. Kathy, you agree with that?
That's correct.
All right, so now you're going to go to the mayor's letter of November 12th?
I was
It's,
gonna go to the one
October.
on October 8th.
Oh, October 8th.
And was there a different letter for,
Is that Town of Vernon?
That's the Vernon one.
okay. Is there substantially different, or are they,
Yeah, they're different.
pardon?
They're different.
Okay, so you're gonna go through that?
Yep, I was just
Okay.
checking with. So, you all took a look at, City of Waukesha's, two-page letter, goes through the sections. I'm gonna ask you again if you've reviewed those sections. So on, page 1, we've got, he's, talking about section 4 and section 5. Did last night. So they were in your packets, by the way.
I would just, I guess, make one comment, and that would be on section 5, reviewed it, but it states that the plan states it will result in solidification of town borders to create an environment for effective and efficient planning for the town of Waukesha. The plan is proposed to be between two towns, neither of which has the ability to annex land to the other. The boundary between the two towns can be altered only by mutual agreement of the parties, cannot be forced by one on the other, so there's no need for an agreement to solidify the border. I would just say respectfully, that is historically a bit inaccurate. When the town of Brookfield attempted to take, and that's my word, over 800 acres of town land, and I think that should be noted for the record. This town spent an awful lot of time, energy, and expense to try to protect our town land in the northeast corner of the township of the town of Waukesha. That's a historical perspective that, at least for some of us, will not soon be forgotten.
All right, so, anything else on section 4 or 5? We all reviewed it?
I did.
Section 6, content of the plan. Section 7, joint planning area. And section 8, municipal services.
Yes, I reviewed it all.
Reviewed it.
And then his statement stating that, it's not a cooperative plan. The last 2 paragraphs.
Reviewed it.
Again, these were taken into consideration when we were reviewing, going over the last, the final changes to the cooperative plan that you have in front of you. There are two documents you have. You have one in red that, that shows what was changed from the original plan, and then you have a clean copy of the plan in front of you as well. After you reviewed those two.
Oh, Kathy, just for the record, let's stop for a second, because we're still on the comments. Were there any comments from the
Oh,
public
yes.
hearing that you
Yes,
wanted to address?
Yes, there were. So we had a couple of comments. One was from Julie Aguilera from Coventry Lane, asked what would be inserted on a blank line on page 3 of the draft. We indicated that it'd be filled in with the copies available once we finish the request. Then Mike Borchard, Hunter's Hollow, asked what services the towns are planning to share. Attorney Hammis indicated that the towns are only planning for the town of Brookfield to make water and sewer service available to the parcels in the adjoining planning area. So those were our 2 comments during our public hearing. So we had 2 comments during the public hearing, 2 comments that were written, that were given to us within the 20-day turnaround.
And you're looking at a document that's marked Exhibit A, is that correct?
That was in Exhibit A, yes. That's our,
And why don't you just, for the record, tell us Exhibit A is an exhibit you're gonna put what the cooperative plan when you send it to the state?
That's correct. It's the Exhibit A is the minutes from the public hearing, the notice of the public hearing, the agenda of the public hearing, and the sign-in sheet from the public hearing. In addition, you have Exhibit B, which is the letter we just went through from the city of Waukesha. Exhibit C is the letter we just went through from the city of Brookfield. Exhibit D in front of you is the should probably read the back of it. Exhibit D is the town of Brookfield boundary map.
I didn't need you to go through all exhibits necessarily, you can do that when you go through the agreement. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we were finishing all of the comments and got the public record
Yes.
comments into this record. So, are the board members satisfied that they've had ample opportunity to review the comments as set forth in the plan commission, in the public hearing minutes, as well as the 2 letters?
Yes.
I am.
And then, as you go through the agreement, Kathy's gonna walk you through the red-lined agreement, and, so make sure we have it in front of you, you can have it clean in front of you also. Maybe Kathy, you could point out some of the changes that were made to specifically, you're gonna see that there were substantial, well, not substantive, but numerous changes made to address, specifically to address these concerns. And so, again, Attorney Hammis, did the drafting for the most part on this one, and went to great length to research the history of the relationship between the town of Waukesha and the city of Waukesha in this area, joint planning area, and he's put all of that into this document in large part based on the comments that were made. Is that a correct statement, Kathy?
Correct.
So that, have you finished?
Yeah.
That said, then we're we're moving on to item 24H, which is discussion and possible action regarding resolution to approve the cooperative boundary agreement with the town of Brookfield, and you were kind of in the process of going through and summarizing the things that constitute the cooperative boundary agreement, the exhibits and so forth. right?
So I guess I'll go through the red line, and then when we come up to the exhibit, we can take a look at the exhibit, if that's all right.
Okay.
All right, so we changed the whereas and added, so the whereas Brookfield and Waukesha desire to enter into the plan for the purpose of guiding and accomplishing it. A coordinated, adjusted, and harmonious development, and we put in and redevelopment of certain lands in Waukesha, described more particularly in this agreement as the joint utility service area. So that is something that was a change from the joint planning area. We changed it to a joint utility service area, which development and redevelopment with sanitary sewer and water is consistent with the comprehensive plans of Waukesha, as well as Waukesha County Comprehensive Plan. We also, added, after review of the comments, the whereas Brookfield and Waukesha have determined that the intergovernmental cooperation by extension of sanitary sewer and water services as set forth in this plan will provide for the best use of the land and natural resources and make available to Waukesha residents high quality and efficient utility services. Whereas the extension of both sanitary sewer and water services to Waukesha is, as provided by this plan, will benefit Brookfield by permitting recovery of capital costs expended by Brookfield and will result in additional customers for the Brookfield utilities. That's to answer one of the city's Brookfield's questions on what's in it for the town of Brookfield.
Right.
And so that was to clarify that they will be recovering their capital costs. The next whereas was just an extension of the utility service, which will facilitate development and redevelopment. So again, we changed the joint planning area, used the joint utility service area, indicated this was for development and redevelopment in the area. So whereas Brookfield and Waukesha have received comments regarding the proposed cooperative plan in the joint public hearing conducted on September 19th, 2019, Exhibit A, which is what we just went through, was the minutes. And subsequent to the public hearing have received written comments from the city of Waukesha and the city of Brookfield, which written comments are appended. Those were the two exhibits we went through. Whereas the Brookfield and Waukesha have taken into consideration the public hearing comments and written comments referred to herein and have modified the initial draft. And that's what we just did today. Brookfield did it earlier than we did. Section 1, we added definitions to kind of help out when reviewing the packet. So we added terms such as what a boundary is, what the capital costs are, Fox River Water Pollution Control Facility, the joint utility service area, what a municipality means, what the utility service means. So it's kind of self-explanatory. The existing boundaries, that was questioned quite a few times by both of the cities. Adjustment of the existing common boundary lines between Brookfield and Waukesha are not required in order to implement this cooperative plan. Accordingly, the common boundary line between Brookfield and Waukesha will remain the common boundary line during the planning period. In the event either of the municipalities incorporate as a village or city, neither municipality shall accept or approve any annexations of any territory from the other municipality. So that will protect us, which is another reason why this cooperative boundary is important. If the town of Brookfield gets their incorporation and the town of Waukesha does not, we would want to make sure that our border is protected. The purpose of the plan, we changed a few things, making sure that when we were talking about development, we were also talking about redevelopment. A is to increase, the reason we're doing it is, A is to increase government efficiencies by extension of sanitary sewer and water services from Brookfield, and the creation of the JUSA in accordance with the terms of the plan, to allow Brookfield to recover capital costs and annual operating expenses that relate to the provision of sanitary sewer and water services to Brookfield customers, to promote orderly and more effective or efficient development and redevelopment of lands within the the JUSA as described in this plan. Section 6 was consistency with the comprehensive plans. In this section, we did get determination and had Planner Malarkey review both plans, make sure that the consistency was there, and we have put that information in section 6 of consistency with comprehensive plans. So in the just to make note, on page 5, the middle paragraph, which is part of the Waukesha County Comprehensive Plan, it states where cities and villages own and operate essential public utilities not provided by adjacent towns, the plan presumes that cities and villages will either annex unincorporated territories recommended in the plan for urban development and provide extension of essential utility services to serve such development, or that the cities and villages will reach agreement with adjacent unincorporated towns on the extension of those essential services without the need of annexation and municipal. So that is actually in the Waukesha County Comprehensive Plan. So we put that in there. Brookfield, although a town rather than a city or village owns 12.83% of a treatment capacity in the Fox River Water Pollution Control Facility. So we've talked about that and added that. So then the questions that they don't have capacity has been reviewed. And we also have in Exhibit M a letter from reviewing how that capacity was determined. The content of the plan, so neither Brookfield nor Waukesha has the ability to annex territory from the other municipality, and accordingly, there are no conditions under which a boundary change would occur. We made that very solid in the plan.
All of this was rewritten, Kathy. I don't know that you've all had a chance to go through it. I don't know that you need to go
Thank you.
through it line by line.
Appreciate
But
that.
the whole thing has been outlined to specifically, there's no way, in my opinion, the state could come back and say that you didn't take into consideration the comments. I mean, all they gotta do is look at the red line and all of the changes that were made based on the comments and the concerns raised, dealing with the, shape of the boundaries, the sanitary sewer service issue, the municipal water service issue, and then miscellaneous provisions. Those are all statutory requirements, some of them about where the highways are and things like that. Again, your staff, Kathy, working with Attorney Hammes, spent hours going through and making sure that all of the statutory requirements have been met, the checklist has been met, and all the comments have been at least considered or taken into consideration when they did the rewrite of this document.
So you all have had a time to review the cooperative plan?
Yes.
You do have all of the exhibits, A through M, that gives proof of what was said in the plan, gives us some, how some of our properties are on holding tanks because they don't want to annex. What happened when Highway 59 was put in place, what kind of, why water wasn't extended to that area of the town. So a lot of historical documents are put in here to help back up why this plan makes sense to have water and sewer extended from the town of Brookfield into that northeast corner of our town. So, we're looking for approval. The town of Brookfield did approve last night the cooperative boundary agreement. The next step, if you decide to approve this tonight, Attorney Hammis and I will be meeting tomorrow morning, and we will get the packet ready to go and out the door tomorrow.
Okay. Any further, thank you for the nice presentation. Any further discussion on the resolution to approve the cooperative boundary agreement?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2019-R-12, to adopt the cooperative boundary agreement with the town of Brookfield.
And I would add that, and to authorize the town chairman to sign the same, as well as the cooperative boundary plan itself.
Exactly.
And further, it's entitled and to transmit the cooperative boundary agreement to the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration. Can we incorporate that as well, Mike?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Everyone understand the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Then we're on to
Can I get your signature?
20, absolutely. We're on to 24I, which is review of written and oral comments on the cooperative plan with the town of Guanago. Kathy?
So, you have, in your packets, I think it's Exhibit C. This one's a little different. So let me grab these. This is the cities, I know it's in your packet also, but I didn't want you to. And, Attorney Macy went through each one of these, items. This is the, our one written document.
Hold on just one quick second. I want to make sure we're on cooperative boundary agreement with the town of Mukwonago.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped to.
So that's fine. So that'll be coming up in a minute.
Yeah, let me put this all back. I jumped to Vernon. We have no written comments for the village of Mukwonago's,
Town of Mukwonago.
or town of Mukwonago's plan. So, in front of you, you have the Town of Mukwonago's plan with the, with both the red,
Okay, Kathy, first you have to do the minutes of the public hearing.
Yeah, the oral comments.
we
gotta-
had two comments from, two residents, both in favor of the agreement.
So you clearly took those into consideration.
Right, because you were in, at the public hearing. Those were the only two comments we had. I just can't find my McGuanago stuff.
I mean, just even running on memory, I remember the two individuals, one of them posed the question of how entering into that agreement would be in the best interest of the town of Mukwonago,
It was,
and that was
Gilbert
answered
Ridley.
at the time and place. And I believe the other public speaker simply generally spoke in support of the agreement.
That's correct.
Is that consistent with other folks' recollection?
So do you have the agreement in front of you, Kathy?
I do. She didn't give it to me. So we have the agreement pretty much very close, similar to the Vernon agreement. We were lucky to have the chairman in Vernon do a nice job on the one between Vernon and the town of Waukesha, so we kind of use that moving forward. So the changes were, we made a change to the whereas, setting the boundary lines. We made sure that they understood that we're setting that boundary line, and it's for the full period, time period of the plan. We received the comments, we reviewed the comments. So, in this one, it says, as the existing common boundary line between Mukwonago and Waukesha is set forth in section 5, thereby protecting both towns from adverse border changes due to possible future annexations in the event either town becomes incorporated. So essentially the same information we had in Brookfield, except just a little different one. To ensure orderly development, to continue and increase government efficiencies. We spoke again about the existing border to make sure that we are able to tick off all the things the state is looking for. Consistency on the comprehensive plans. Again, I had Sean do a review of our comprehensive plan and the town of Mukwonago's comprehensive plan, and gave us a exhibit for use with this plan as well, showing the consistencies. We have the joint planning committee. We made sure that when we were talking about members, we changed it to the joint planning committee. We made sure that we went through the process and changed a couple of things. In the past, we were able, 2 members were able to call the meeting by giving 2 weeks' notice. We changed that to 48 hours because we didn't want to hold up any progress. We went through the shared services area and really gave a good understanding of what services both communities have and what services we share between us currently. It talks about the shared service committee and what its duties are, why we have it, and why we believe it needs to continue on. Some of this was changes just to reorganize. We cleaned up the proper highways. There's no division of assets because we're not switching any of the property. We
And
tightened up
Kathy,
our.
in that one, we're asking to strike the word other.
Oh, okay. In which one?
Section formerly 8, now 9, second last sentence. There
Oh, yeah.
are no provisions in this plan.
Right. Okay. The, section 10.
Doesn't make
Again,
any
we're
sense.
talking about annexation and redevelopment, that's what the joint planning commission's for. We, the general provisions, we strengthened that to make sure that if one piece in the future became, the court stated it was unconstitutional, that the rest of the agreement would still continue. And then we gave the notice of our contact information. That's it.
There's a typo in section 10, the chairman's pointed out.
Okay.
Second full
Yeah.
sentence.
I think it should read, the perpetual term has been agreed to in order to maintain the historic existing boundaries so that there will be no
Yep.
irregularly shaped
No
borders
irregularly. No.
without an A, no irregularly shaped,
Okay.
B-O-R-D-E-R-S.
No irregularly shaped.
Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
No.
All right, your administrator put this agreement together. If you have any questions, it's based on, in large part, the Vernon agreement. The Vernon agreement, because they're very similar situations. There's 1 mile here, there's 3 miles there, but many of the same issues, although, of course, modified for the 2 respective communities. This one, you're going to need to approve. We're recommending you approve, subject, if you're of a mind to do so, subject to authorizing the administrator to make technical changes. If you want them to go to the chairman, that's fine. Mugwanago has not had as much opportunity to review it. They'll be taking it up next Wednesday at their regular meeting. And so this one won't go in till after that. In fact, we have to wait till the time limits are met.
Oh,
So they're,
it's already met.
pardon?
Time
This one-
limits are
this one's
already met.
This one's met?
Yep.
Okay. And so, it would be a similar motion, fixing those 3 typos and authorizing your administrator to make, nothing substantive, of course, but making, technical changes.
Someone prepared to make that motion with regard to resolution number 2019-R-14?
So I'll make that motion to adopt the resolution to adopt a cooperative boundary agreement with the town of Mugwanago and to transmit cooperative boundary agreement to the state of Wisconsin Department of Administration with the correction of the 3 typos and authorize the town administrator to make any technical changes that are not substantive to the plan.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? Okay, a motion by Supervisor Dorr, second by Supervisor Stigler. Does everyone understand the motion? Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Then we're on to 24J, which is 24K. Review of written and oral comments on the cooperative plan with the town of Vernon.
All right, so that's the November 12th.
Well, first summarize for us, how many comments do we have? We have the public hearing comments, and we have 1 letter, 2 letters, what do we have
We
here?
have the public comments, and then we also have the 1 letter from the city of Waukesha.
And this letter, Kathy started, your administrator started by putting some thoughts on paper, how to address these comments. So you should have a red line, is that correct, Kathy, all
No.
of you?
Of
Which,
redlined of the plan?
no, of the letter from,
No, they do not.
okay. Well, the first paragraph talks about an absence of detail. I'll walk through this one for Kathy,
Thank
she
you.
can take a break. There's an absence of detailed information regarding the statements
Exhibit
made
F.
throughout the plan as presented. Correct, Kathy? I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Go
As
ahead.
presented, the plan is not a plan to accomplish anything. It's a statement of status quo. Well, we have a statement here that you have reviewed the statement, and then the town agrees the plan preserves the status quo. Preserving the status quo is a critical issue to the town. This allows both towns to design and build infrastructure with assurance that the infrastructure will remain within the town. It also ensures that each town can negotiate with land developers in the future, knowing that they do not face the risks of annexation from the abutting municipality. While both are currently towns, one or the other could become incorporated in the future, or the law might change, making annexation possible among towns, and this agreement protects against those risks of adverse boundary changes. So we're probably going to submit this letter with these comments. The next comment was to section 3. We should have that, right? It states that the establishment of the joint planning will assure orderly development, but does not explain how orderly development will be assured. Please provide detail of how this goal will be achieved. We have a statement that you've reviewed the statement, and then this allows both towns to design and build infrastructure with assurance that infrastructure will remain within the town. Also ensures that each town can negotiate similar steps. That's how the goal will be achieved. Subsection C is asserted the plan will increase governmental efficiency through the sharing of services. We have a statement that you've reviewed that. Not going to read this whole paragraph. The town land use plan states the town and all abutting municipalities should work together in trying to accommodate new development, redevelopment, senior housing, and multifamily developments. The cooperative plan meets the intent of this intergovernmental objectives. The agreement is to create and operate a shared services committee. A joint planning committee will have a significant impact on the abutting municipalities to cooperate in the future. Without these avenues of communication, the likelihood of eliminating duplicative or unnecessary expenditures is slim. Establishing these lines of communication going forward will allow for the good communication to achieve these goals. Mayor Riley then indicated in section 5, consistency with the plans, and commented on that. In our responses, while it's true that under current laws neither town can annex from the other, state of affairs is not likely to continue long into the future. It's very possible that one of the other municipalities will incorporate, or state laws could change. The town believes it's an appropriate time to protect themselves with both currently exist as towns to while both currently exist as towns to solidify the status quo. Mayor Riley mentioned section SA, joint planning. Please address why the towns do not and cannot work cooperatively. We indicate that by this you're reviewing it. Most municipalities, the Plan Commission also serves in an advisory capacity. Yet Plan Commissioners have an essential role. The towns believe the Joint Planning Committee will provide much needed advisory recommendations to the municipalities, while the town could work cooperatively in other words, the immaterial, because this is the way the towns have chosen to do so. Section 6, a shared services committee is formed, which is an informal advisory body, explaining the need for a formal cooperation plan to form the committee. Advisory committees can serve essential functions, and many examples of advisory committees throughout the municipal government can cited, including Plan Commission and many municipalities. It's hoped the shared service committee will study mutual efficiency that can be achieved in a wide area of municipal services, whether it be fire service, emergency medical, police, public works, parks, planning, inspection, garbage, recycling, snow plowing, or other shared services. Such cooperation does not happen without careful consideration and study. There will be significant benefit to both municipalities that have the resources available to conduct these studies and offer their recommendations for possible efficiencies that can be among the municipalities. There really is no limit to the opportunities that may arise from these discussions, and absent the committee, these discussions might never occur. Next one was, he claims that our plan is not a cooperative plan, and you reviewed that. Cooperative plan is a valuable tool for local communities and a welcome alternative to protracted conflicts and litigation over municipalities. While annexations tend to pit neighboring communities against one another, boundary plans provide a chance to focus on shared values, points of agreement, solutions, and can benefit. Should be noted, as you know, Vernon came here how many months ago and years ago and said, let's get together and do this. And this is absolutely taking to the next step what they had raised before. So we need you all to affirm that we have now gone through this letter in great deal. We've commented on these, and Kathy's then prepared to go through the red line. We'll give you a little background on the red line of this document. It's written by large part by the town chairman, the town of Vernon. He's a retired Foley and Lardner lawyer, and he's the lawyer who, or the individual who challenged the Village of McGuanago agreement. So he knows what needs to be an agreement and what doesn't need to be an agreement. He has spent, I can't tell you how many hours going through this agreement and making sure that all of the requirements of a cooperative boundary agreement are provided in this agreement. So Kathy, they have a red line, and you want to walk them through it?
Sure. So we changed up some of the whereases to take into consideration. One of the last whereases was talking about our public hearing, making sure that we've given ample time. We received comments from the city of Waukesha, and that we have included those as one of our exhibits. We've taken into consideration those comments from the city tonight. And before we move forward, I'd like to get an affirmative that we all agree that we've reviewed those comments and understand them.
I have.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. In section 3, we changed that up a little bit to talk about the affixing of the boundary, just like in McGuanago. We changed it to really solidify that two towns do need to come into an agreement because future annexation, to keep any future annexations from happening, just in case one of them becomes incorporated, or if the law changes, which would allow towns to incorporate, or to annex. So that's the same paragraph we talked about in the McGuanago plan. We have we continuously talk about that, keeping that boundary between us, that 3.5-mile boundary when it comes to common boundary. We talk about the compactness, that by keeping that boundary, we aren't, we're keeping it compact between our two borders. We've addressed that issue, consistency and comprehensive plans. We again went through and had Sean do a review of the comprehensive plans between the two. We're using that as an exhibit, as well as talked about how our comprehensive plans do complement each other. We talk about the joint planning committee. The planning committee members, again, we changed the hours to 48 hours instead of 2 weeks. We speak about the shared services and the shared services committee, how that delivery of the municipal services would be met, and that the current municipalities, what our services are, and that those services would be still afforded to our residents, as we are not shifting boundaries. And then also the shared services, which is a little longer list than what we do in McGuanago. We share our fire and EMS mutual aid. We also share DPW road plowing, salting, maintenance, election notices, recreation programs. The town of Vernon allows our residents to join their recreational programs, and we do some joint purchasing. So we talk about that in our shared service committee, and how the future, we don't know what the future is going to be on what kind of shared services we could be looking at. Maybe sharing the purchase of equipment would be helpful in the future. We don't know how water and sewer on that border is going to be, and what that might come to in the future. The content of the plan, we went through that, made sure we went through and ticked off everything that was required in the plan. We did the dispute resolution and beefed that up a little bit. We have that same document. We have to take the other out of this one as well. On section 9, there are no provisions in this plan. So we've got the exhibits, and these exhibits go from A through J, that you have in front of you.
Yeah, she mentioned that. She went over it very quickly, but the chairman pointed
No, I
out the
got
word
it.
other.
I got it, yeah.
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 Okay, so, do you have any questions on this, border, this, cooperative plan?
Just the timing on that, we're taking this up first, and the town of Vernon will be taking this up shortly.
Next week. So both Vernon and McGuanago are both taking them up next week, one on the 18th, one on the 19th.
Okay, any questions on Resolution 2019-R-13 and the underlying agreement? Mike, you want to do your same
Sure.
motion again?
Motion to adopt resolution 2019-R-13, cooperative boundary agreement with the town of Vernon, and to transmit the cooperative boundary agreement to the state of the Wisconsin Department of Administration, and to allow the administrator to make technical changes that are not substantive in nature.
And to correct that single typo by
Yes.
taking out the one word. Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Durr, second by Supervisor Radke to approve Resolution 2019-R-3. Does everybody understand the motion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all the staff people and people in other communities who put together these documents and all of the time, effort, and work that it entailed. Okay, we're on to 25, announce closed session number 1. You are hereby notified that the town board of the town of Waukesha will convene and may upon motion duly made and seconded and acted upon by roll call vote as required under Wisconsin statutes 1985-1C. Go into closed session during the course of the meeting. Town board members may attend the closed session. The purpose to considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss administrator and clerk treasurer contracts. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Chairman, I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Is there a second? I will second the motion. Is there any discussion? Okay, the motion has been made by Supervisor Radke. I seconded to go into closed session. Roll call vote, please.
Chairman Fisher?
Aye.
Supervisor Radke?
Aye.
Supervisor German?
Aye.
Supervisor Durr?
Aye.
And Supervisor Stigler?
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session at 11:32 PM.
usually a booster club.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they get the concessions or the gym gets the
Yeah.
and stuff like that, but, and so then there's a lot of, politics involved in who's holding the meeting, because there's often more clubs than there are weekends. And so, you know, you gotta rotate it, you gotta try and be fair, to people, but yeah, it's a real thing. It's a week.
What's your daughter doing?
She's in optometrist, school in Florida, and, you know, doing great.
Is she coming home for Christmas?
No, I already sent her money.
Oh. Darn.
The money that they'll be spending, not the money for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I understood that.
Yeah,
Yes.
so they, just, my daughter, the other two are single, Logan is engaged. And, but his, fiance, they had, well, she's gonna have, and he has to pay them for stuff. They wanna have a wedding in Cabo Mexico.
Oh, my gosh.
So destination wedding. So we're gonna have to, you know, save up our money and get our real IDs. It's not till next November.
Oh,
You know, plan way a year in advance.
you'll have to tell them about the honeymoon couple on our cruise.
Yeah, early October, we went on a cruise down to Yucatan Peninsula. Our daughter had, her husband had some visitors, married, got married 35 years ago. And we left out of New Orleans. We,
Out of New Orleans.
yeah, and then you anyway,
Good job. In the summer, it's sour. You know, that was.
anyway,
They've already made up their mind. Independent. You have to stay, Sean?
what's that?
You have to stay?
Yeah.
Who's salary?
He's got a wife and kids.
I hear you.
A 23-year-old brand new room fell off from deck 15 down to deck 1 and got really bad. Took it for a while. And they turned the ship around back to the mouth of Mississippi at the Coast Guard. They came up
The administrator.
and if you get on your iPad sometime, you go in Carnival Valor, VALOR,
Pardon?
accident,
Brian will do it.
you'll find out about it. And he is gonna be recovered from that injury he was, but they were on that. They bought one of the
No. I know, but you were very professional and you laid it all out.
the story was,
We couldn't get on the ship at 12, so that was the earliest they could start.
and this was a conflict in 30s.
So he was taking advantage.
Well, they had,
But we remembered everything that we were supposed to remember between the typos and the giving you authority and, I mean, what more could we have done, huh? Pardon? Oh, yeah, tell me about it. I'm dying here. I went through a whole box of tissues. I don't know where I got this cold. It's horrible. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't see those, and they kept sneaking in the back and grabbing your staff's tissues.
there's a video somewhere taken from the helicopter, you're watching a guy, diving, basket up. He's twisting down there, and he's
Thank goodness.
He's never gonna get the city of Washington, Dane County area, Madison vote regardless. So why would you piss off all the towns? Sharon Lear's head of the towns, state towns, if, you know, these would be the urban towns. Town meeting, she's just, I think, perfect. She's gonna take this all over town. It's along with you guys. I get along with you. I mean, I don't find her as a hothead at all. Very easy for show. I completely sensitive. I've never seen this from the ice. For no reason whatsoever. I think he that's the way it feels. He voted for this law. You know that 4 days after he voted for this law, going into effect, he's already stepped down, he's already county exec. He voted for this law in 2015. And he was a senator. Every vote for the law was also saying consistency. So it was like. Right. Everybody thought it only applied to one town. Or Alice or somebody does. Their plan, everything up front, their plan told them they didn't qualify back in 2015, 2016. It was stupid, Sean. It was absolutely the stupidest political move I have ever seen run for office. That's exactly right. He sealed his fate. Well, there's a lot of people that don't, you know, I mean, I've never heard Paul say he wants to run for governor. Or did it so in response to you, they also say he's not. I have no idea what it is, but I say it makes Margaret stress. Margaret created that. She had a problem with the news, so she's got her board just on her back. Now Paul. Yeah, I just don't get it. Don't get it. I mean, she ran, you know, what?
Actually, I didn't know, I was surprised with the letter, I moved to South Dakota. I didn't know what it was gonna say.
I've never seen Paul do something so. I've never seen Sean allow Paul to do
Actually,
something.
only two. I did three just in case one falls through.
So, I don't have any. They didn't really want to win. Well, and I was very. All right. One of the shareholders for Stephen. Oh. Tell me that Nick was going to city and the county. No, I you made the point. You did a lot of stuff above and beyond what the clerk has to do, and, you know. Yep.
Okay, we are back in open session at 11:50 PM. Discussion, possible action discussed in closed session. Okay, then if nothing, we'll move on to
I'll make a
number
motion
27.
to extend a contract to the current administrator that runs concurrent with her clerk treasurer contract that would terminate on July 25th of 2021.
I'll second.
Is there a rate of compensation you have in mind?
My motion is my motion, Mr. Chairman.
I don't understand it then.
At the current compensation.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Supervisor Durr and Supervisor Radke are aye. Supervisor Stigler, Supervisor German, and Chairman Fisher are nay, so the motion does not pass. Announce closed session number 2. You are hereby notified that the town board of the town of Waukesha will convene and may, upon motion duly made and seconded and acted upon by roll call vote as required under Wisconsin Stats 19.851G, go into closed session during the course of the meeting. Town board members may attend the closed session. The purpose of the closed session will be as follows: to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically to discuss border protection, including annexation request. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
And is there a second? I'll second. Is there any discussion on the motion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Chairman Fisher,
Aye.
Supervisor Radke,
Aye.
Supervisor Durr,
Aye.
Supervisor German,
Aye.
Supervisor Stickler.
Aye.
Okay, we are in closed session number 2, beginning at 11:54 PM. Okay, we are back in open session at 12:25 a.m. on Friday, the 13th, 2019. Item 28, any discussion or action on what occurred in closed session? If there's none, go on to item 29, which is discussion and possible action on resolution 2019-R-12, adopting the project plan for tax incremental district number 1 and creating tax incremental district number 1 of the town of Waukesha, Waukesha, Wisconsin. Any discussion on that item? Are you of a desire to act on that then? Okay, I will make a, go ahead.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to accept resolution 2019-R-12, adopting the project plan for tax incremental finance district number 1 and creating tax incremental district number 1 of the town of Waukesha, Waukesha County, Wisconsin.
Okay, I will second the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Accounts payable authorize the payment of the bills. Do you have a number?
I make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $254,041.52.
I'll second.
Okay, I would like to, yeah, I understand. I'd like to ask for an amendment or a friendly amendment to that. I believe in that group of bills there is an invoice for $300,000, and you can help me with the firm name, but for the special prosecutor for the town of Waukesha Broad A Corporation matter. I would like to abstain from that, so I'd like to have that taken separately. Is there any objection to that?
Could you repeat the amount?
I believe it's $300.
Oh, I thought you said 300,000 at first.
Whoops,
That's what
did I?
understood down here, I thought, but.
It's late at night, $300, so, can we subtract that off of that number and take that separately? Is there any objection to that?
I'll have that for you in a second. So I'll make the motion for $353,700.
Two? We're all spending money wildly tonight.
Oh, excuse me, $254,741.52. 41.
$253,741.
It's 12:30.
All right, all in,
Second that.
all right, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're correct. Roll call.
Supervisor Durr,
Aye.
Supervisor Radke,
Aye.
Supervisor Stigler,
Aye.
Supervisor German. Chairman.
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Nope, we have to
pay
do the $300.
Make a motion to pay the special prosecutor $300.
I'll second.
Under discussion, I guess I have an inquiry about that, looking at disbursements from the town treasury. Clerk treasurer is authorized to make those payments after having determined that the item or service covered by the bill or voucher has been duly authorized. And my question would be, I don't have any recollection that the town board ever voted on hiring a special prosecutor. So who hired the special prosecutor, and how was that retainer duly authorized? Kathy?
It was approved in closed session, and the special prosecutor was was found by our attorney.
So the town board voted on that in closed session?
Wouldn't they have come out of closed
Yeah,
session?
we came
and
out
said
of closed
voted to-
session and voted in
To
open
authorize
session.
to proceed as discussed
As
in closed
discussed
session.
in closed session, right.
That's
The
way they
vote
always
was
do it.
taken in open session, we discussed it in closed session.
Right.
Same procedure they always follow.
I see. Okay, a roll call vote.
Are you asking, are you taking these positions as chairman?
Taking what position? I just asked a question.
Well,
I asked how that was
you're chairing the meeting
authorized.
for, again, something
What's
that you have a personal stake in.
I can ask that question.
You're chairing a meeting and having discussion with the board as the chairman on an issue that you have a financial
No.
stake in.
I can ask, I'm certainly entitled to ask whether that expenditure was duly authorized or not.
But your
That's stated
question
of
from
our-
that side of the desk is different than your question from the other side
No,
of the desk.
doesn't make any difference.
It makes all the difference in the world.
No, it does not. All right, roll call vote.
Supervisor Stigler.
Aye.
Supervisor Durr.
Aye.
Supervisor German. Supervisor Radke.
Aye.
Chairman Fisher.
I abstain. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion we adjourn.
All right, 12:31 a.m. All in favor of the motion to
Aye.
adjourn indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?